Hello, everyone, and welcome to the next episode of the Super SOC podcast. I'm Ahmed, the co-founder and CEO of Qevlar AI, the company that precisely gives your SOC superpowers. In this episode, we are exploring how AI is blurring the lines between MSSPs and enterprise SOC, from standardization to something more personalized and scalable service models. I'm joined today by Erik Bloch, VP of Security at Illumio. Erik, nice to have you with us. Erik has spent over 30 years in cybersecurity and has led security operation teams at some of the largest and most complex organizations, including Salesforce and Atlassian. Welcome, Erik. How was your day?
Well, thank you much. I'm happy to be on here and be able to discuss something that I'm pretty passionate about.
Perfect. Thank you. So let's jump right into our questions. Erik, you've mentioned that MSSP SOCs are a noun, a product from a point of view, while enterprise SOCs are more a verb or a capability. How does that difference shape the types of AI use cases each model is best positioned to adopt?
Sure, and this is something I've actually given a lot of thought about, having worked kind of on both sides of it, having worked at, big enterprise SOCs, working with Salesforce and their massive SOC in India, working with Atlassian and our SOC capability, even at Sprinkler, at a smaller company, or at Cisco back in the day when SOCs weren't even a thing yet. And I've also worked at NTT, which is one of the largest MSPs on the planet, and I worked out of their advanced services SOC facility in Sweden, where I got kind of the glimpse of the other side and how things function over there. From that point of view, when I say that an MSSP SOC is a noun, because it is a thing, right? It's a place, it's a product, it is a profit center. It's something that you're selling as a service to make money off of, versus an enterprise SOC, where it's more of a capability or a function you're providing to the company. It's kind of like the IT help desk, type analogy for an enterprise company where things are being dumped into it and all kinds of things are happening at the other side. Versus an MSP type SOC where you're delivering a kind of a uniform service to all of your clients. So the work they do is while it's a little bit of it's analogous when you're looking at the kind of machine-based detections. An enterprise SOC is far more kind of bespoke and custom to whatever the enterprise does and the enterprise needs, what they're responding to. Again, versus an MSP, where again you're delivering kind of a uniform service to all of your customers. And so from that point of view, when you start bringing AI into the questions, and this is something that I dealt with at Salesforce when I started the security data science team there, is I assume we could just bring in these generic use cases and make them work. And it turns out they don't, because again, every company is different. Their networks are different, the equipment they have is different. So the solution you have to build for them is almost bespoke, kind of like how you see SOAR platforms today. You go into their libraries and there's 50 run books on how to mess with a phishing email, because everyone's infrastructure is different. You have to kind of customize it to them, versus an MSP, where again you're delivering a uniform service to all of your customers. So from that point of view, the use cases are far more narrow, and it actually becomes something, in my view, I think, that AI today is far more capable of tackling, versus all the bespoke, corner use cases that enterprise run into.
Absolutely interesting. And by the way, this is indeed something that we do see ourselves as well. I think that the hardest challenge, the hardest hurdle along the way for AI is actually dealing with context, so that it can understand the specificities, the intricacies of each of the organization it is dealing with. Which actually brings me to my second question. Let's assume that autonomous AI does its job well, can take over high volume of alerts, can do the job as well as humans. Do you see enterprise SOCs adopting more standardized workflows by using these AIs? And on the other end, MSSPs pushing deeper for customer-specific value?
That's an interesting question, because I know a lot of enterprises, the problem they face today in the SOC and the security operations space, it's not necessarily a lack of tooling. It does come down to a lack of process. Everywhere I've been, even into larger organizations down to little tiny startups, how they get from point A to point B, from a noise being made to how you resolve it, it's completely different. Like how I did something, how we did an investigation at Salesforce was 100% different than how we did it at Atlassian. But the inputs and the outcomes are the same. Some bad thing happened and you want to resolve it at the other end. And so from that point of view, again, when I've gone through and kind of mapped data flows, I've mapped what these different organizations do. Again, there's no rhyme or reason. There's no best practice of how to SOC. I mean, there is, but there's like NIST guidelines and SAN guidelines, right? But they're kind of one size fits all. But if you're a 1,000-person company, your needs are vastly different than a 50,000-person company, and that model is not going to apply to you. So from that point of view, I hope larger companies will adopt better processes, because to me that's what's kind of broken in security operations and SOCs today, is the lack of any type of process, any type of measurements or metrics to actually see what you're doing and the value you're delivering to the company. Today it's there's a flood of things coming out, you're tackling as much of them as you can, and you're reporting up the chain that, hey, look, we did 2,000 events this month, and the CTO gives you a high five and doesn't have any idea, and you move on with life. Versus MSSPs, like, they know what they're doing. They know exactly what they're doing. They know exactly how much every alert costs. They know exactly how much data every person's processing. Because again, they're a profit center. They want to maximize those profits. Of course, you're going to know what their teams are doing. They want to know what value they're delivering to their customers, because their customers are going to ask them. And so from that point of view, having worked with some other MSSPs before, NTT, Sophos, like, they know their numbers. They know the metrics. They know what works and what doesn't, and they focus on bringing value into the MSSP, deliver services people want. Again, where enterprises are just what's on fire today, let's put it out. They're playing whack-a-mole every day. Unless enterprises do adopt some type of process with some type of measurements and metrics to actually show what they're doing, they're going to be kept on this hamster wheel forever. Because if you think back to 20 years ago, back to 2020, SIM is coming to solve all your problems. Here we are, and then, UBA is coming to solve all your problems. Oh, here we are. Oh, SOAR is coming to save all your problems. Here we are, right? Tools are not going to solve a process problem from my perspective, and this is where enterprises get stuck. So even if you were to bring them, the AI tool that does all of the things, if there's no process to plug it into, it's not going to do anything.
Okay, extremely clear. I very much like the analogy. Indeed, it seems like every now and then there is a product in security that will solve everything, but then we understand that maybe that's not indeed the case. But let's maybe assume for now that AI helps effectively MSSPs scale in a context-aware fashion, okay? So that they can really come close to the context of each of their customers without sacrificing any efficiency. Do you think that this future is even possible? Do you see autonomous agents unlocking that level of personalization for each organization they're deployed in?
That's something that I'm still kind of wondering myself. Because as I start to go through and look at, having been involved in kind of the data science space for a while, not data science myself, but having, worked with them a lot, I see the challenges we run into. I see the things that kind of work and don't work. And I see that a lot of teams start from kind of the same place. We have all this data. How do we find the bad things? Versus the inverse. And this is what I've seen work at other places, where you have all this data, and instead of looking for the bad things, looking for the needle in the haystack, I find it's far easier to kind of remove the haystack, or remove most of the haystack, right? By using, you don't have to even use the AI to do this. You can use statistical modeling, machine learning to weed out 80% of the stuff. And that leaves you with a much smaller subset that you can send the AI after. But again, enterprises, for some reason, they all start from the inverse of, how do we find the bad things? What's the TTP we can look for that's going to, and the data scientists come to the security guys, hey, what's the TTP? What's the IOC? What are the things we can look for to help us find the bad things? And then the IR guys are, they're up to their head in work, so they're just tossing them stuff at the wall to see what sticks. Data scientists run around in circles. Maybe they develop something that works, maybe they don't. Which goes back to, again, the lack of process, the lack of knowing what they want to do. And so from that point of view, like, I still see enterprises struggling with this, unless there's something, again, that you can weed out most of the hay from the haystack, leaving you with a much smaller subset of things to do. Once you have that smaller subset of things to do, then I think maybe the SOC and security operations teams, since it's a much smaller subset, can maybe then start to wrap their hands around things. But again, until people start kind of changing their perspective, which no one has time to do because they're putting out fires every day, it's going to be a challenge for enterprise to do this. But conversely, like, I think MSSPs are positioned to do this. And I think, from my point of view, like, they will be the first people to have this working. They will prove it works, right? Based on the level of service they want to deliver. They know what inputs they need. Because again, they're measuring all the things. So I think they will have a much smoother path. And once they have it working, the enterprises will be like, how are they doing that? It's outsourced to them, kind of like, as we did 15 years ago, outsource all the things. But after a while, you start to learn from it, and enterprises will start to adopt it. So there will be that, it's working over there. Let's buy that service. We learned from it over a while. Now let's make that happen here.
In general. All right, interesting. And you've mentioned also the fact that, and again, that's a remark coming from a machine learning engineer. I'm a data scientist myself. Like, data is very important. We tend to forget that. We tend to believe that AI is a silver bullet, a solution to everything.
Yep.
And when you measure the performance of the AI in lab scenarios, it tends to behave extremely well, but then real life tends to be a bit more complex. All the data is not necessarily in the CMDB as you would have hoped for. Sometimes you lack access to some critical source to actually run a deep investigation, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that we need to bake that into the AI. That's something that we try to do typically ourselves by having the AI say, oh, here I could not conclude because I believe I lack this information or that one, to try to provide that level of trust and that level of remaining grounded to the data that it believes it requires. Effectively, I think this is somehow related to the other question I had in mind. Given your background, you have definitely led some massive SOC teams, Salesforce, Atlassian. What is one internal human or people problem that you think AI can help address? And do you think this problem can be somehow packaged by MSSPs as part of the value that they offer?
Yes and yes. Having measured all the things that across my last organization is what we do. I've measured what the pain points are. I know what the quote unquote toil is that these teams do across the board. And if you break down the work they do, on average between my last 3 companies, it's a breakdown about 50%. So 50% of the work they do is dealing with machine-based detections and noise and alerts. The other 50% of it, to your point, is all the human-based stuff. People clicking on the phishing report link, people asking for have their passwords reset, people opening tickets to request SOC 2 report, whatever it is, blah, blah, blah. It's about half what they do. And so from that perspective, if you actually do a breakdown of the volume of work they do, the number one most effective things that we could stick AI on that I hope will take care of it, is just the garbage phishing emails. Like that's the number one bucket of time and volume that my last 3 SOCs and security operations teams have dealt with. And this scales linearly, right? If you think about it, people are reporting, they're hitting the button. The more people that you hire, that's going to go up linearly.
Yeah,
right?
I agree.
And the team is not going to scale linearly. It's never, for every 100 people you get, you're not getting one more guy on your team. You have to figure this out with software. And as you scale, like when I was at Salesforce, that was half of what the SOC did. It was just never-ending slew of phishing and junk emails that people are hitting the button on. Click, 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 click.
Mm-hmm.
That ate up all their time. And this is something
I guess the CISO did a really good job there.
Yeah. He grew
in terms of training.
Yeah. When we did a good job of that, that was where I got my first glimpse of, how to successfully run an awareness and training team that actually was effective because, our bugs went down, the vulnerabilities went down, more reports came in. At the same time, it made our workload go up. There's the low fidelity, anything that's low fidelity crap, like, the phishing alerts, DOP alerts, if you have those things turned on. A lot of these things are low fidelity. They're very repetitive. They're easy, relatively easy, air quotes, to triage. And these are things where I think, again, like, why can't AI take an email that someone forwards, look at it and look at the attachment, click the link, these are things that people do, because again, it's very manual, very repetitive, and say, yeah, this is bad. And taking the next step, I'm going to go into your email system, whatever it is, Proofpoint, Mimecast, Google, Outlook. I'm going to use the message ID. I'm going to delete the email off everyone's box. I'm going to blacklist the email address. All the manual processes that we go through. I hope AI could tackle that, right? And that would remove, a massive burden off of the SOC team. And it would also help kind of alleviate the, the kind of the crap work they do every day that kind of burns them out. Because they're there to catch the bad guys. They're not there to, keep on clicking links to see if they go to malicious websites, right? They're not there to see if Bob is part of finance and he's supposed to look at this file. Like, this is just mind-numbing work, right? And it's very repetitive. Those are the things that I'm hoping AI can do, right? It's kind of the analogy of, I want the AI to do the dishes in my laundry so I can do paint and do art, right? I want the AI to, do the art and by writing and leave me to do the dishes and laundry. I want them to do the crap work. I want to do the fun stuff.
Okay, completely agree. And just fun fact, the AI definitely does that. Like we see that ourselves in production. It's funny how phishing is a email security over the board is actually a weird use case, because either it's a real pain and you can simply not deal with it. And that's often the case for enterprise accounts, because they have, as you said, massive amounts of employees. Therefore, a lot of emails are being reported. Or it can be quite the opposite. It can be something that you have automated with playbooks and you absolutely do not want to hear about it, because actually that's something that you have completely solved. But completely agree with you. This is clearly one of the use cases, one of the types of alerts that one sees the most in SOCs across the board. And it's clearly one where AI does have a lot of value to bring over. So thank you very much for your insight, Erik. I guess now is the time for what I think is the funniest bit of this podcast episode, the fire round. So the principle is actually pretty simple. I will ask you a few questions and please answer them as quickly as you can with the first thing that comes to your mind. Does that work for you? All right. I think I can guess the answer for this one, but still, I will ask it. If you had to ban one type of alert from every SOC for a week, what would this one be?
Anything that was highly repetitive and low fidelity. Again, phishing reports, the DLP alerts, anything like that it ends up being, toil and kind of garbage work that it just consumes a lot of bandwidth for no real value.
All right. Perfect. If AI now could only solve one security problem, what problem do you think this should be?
Man, I wish I could figure out all the terms Gartner keeps coming out with around security, and that blows my mind trying to keep up. But seriously, I in the security operations space, I really hope the AI can again do the things that are low value, low fidelity, high volume, the things that burn people out. Again, I want to do the dishes, do my laundry. Let me do all the fun stuff, right? Versus me doing the laundry and dishes and it doing all.
Okay, so clearly the most repetitive tasks should be the ones that the AI focuses on first, at least.
That's where you're going to be able to show value, not only intrinsic by just people not having to do it anymore, but you can actually measure that, right? By how many things you're doing for them, the time you're giving back, and letting them work on more high value things, the things they want to do. I mean, so it's to me, it's a win-win on both sides.
Okay, absolutely clear. Now, one other question. Let's assume you have $5 million to improve a SOC. What would be the first thing you would spend this money on?
Probably a vacation for everybody.
Okay.
I know how hard these guys work and how little reward they get. So first I'm bringing everyone to a tropical island someplace and having a week off. When we get back, whatever's left, right?
Okay.
If it's an enterprise SOC, what I probably do is bring in some type of program manager, which usually SOCs don't have because they're very process-based. Having somebody to actually examine and look at what they're doing, wrap a metrics program around things, put some process in place. Once you can do that, once you have, actual good metrics in place around, team utilizations, you have things about dispositions of all the alerts that are going through. You're actually following the workflows to make sure tickets are being closed out. You start measuring kind of the fidelity of your detections, how long it takes you to develop them versus how long you take tuning them. You start identifying the things that are working and not working. And once you know that, all of a sudden you start managing the process. You can start saying, okay, well, I need to get rid of tool X, bring in tool X. I need to change process Y. I need to change process Z. But until you have those insights into what's working and what's not working, or even what you're doing, nothing will ever change. And so this is something I've done in my last two roles, bringing in a PM, which again, they're like, why am I doing this for? I'm like, you're gonna help me measure things. You're gonna help me wrap some data or wrap some metrics around the process we have going. And then once you have the information, then you can start making changes. Right? So I'm not sure it'd be $5 million to bring in a PM, but maybe the changes afterwards would require some retooling or some reprocessing that would, cost some money. But vacation, PM, put in a metrics program to actually figure out what's working, and then pivot and change from there.
Absolutely clear. Thank you for that. I found the answer absolutely interesting. And maybe let's go with one last one. What is one thing that you think AI vendors keep overselling? Something that AI vendors talk a lot about, but that in essence still needs more work to be really done in real SOC environments.
I mean, that's a difficult one. When I was walking around RSA, looking at a couple of the AI SOC vendors, the autonomous SOC vendors, when I've been on some calls with some investors, kind of looking at some of these tools, they're all kind of selling like the exciting use case. Like, oh look, we're gonna catch the Chinese APTs and we're gonna do all the investigation and kick them out. Oh, we found this advanced threat thing or some malware, ransomware, and we found it, and we stopped it. And to me, those are like how often in your career are you going to deal with a Chinese APT, right? In my career, 3 times in 35 years, I've dealt with these guys, right? Twice with the Russians. Like, it doesn't happen that often. While it's a cool use case to sell to investors and demo at RSA, it's not a realistic scenario. Again, the day-to-day things you're doing are just the crap work. It's the phishing email, routing tickets, answering questions. It's all the garbage work like that. The actual true positives that the SOC works on that actually gets escalated in the incidents, that's less than 5% of all the work they do by volume, right? It's a very small percentage of it. I want them to do that. That's what they want to do, right? Everything else, eliminate all of it. They keep pitching this super exciting use case of how they find and keep these people out that are not realistic use cases. Because again, the Chinese don't attack you every day. Phishing gets you every day. DLP gets you every day. It's not exciting or sexy. So hence they don't show that demo at RSA or anywhere else, right?
Yeah.
You don't get on a call with them. They go, hey, look, here's how we solved 1,000 phishing emails today. Yay! It's just not exciting at all. At the same time, it's a real problem.
I agree. We should focus more on the repetitive tasks, as you said, on the patterns, which, by the way, is probably where the AI shines most compared to us humans, but completely agree. Listen, Erik, thank you a lot. That was absolutely awesome. I really enjoyed the discussion. Thank you, everyone who has listened to the episode. That was Ahmed from Qevlar AI, and I will see you soon for as insightful conversations as this one on how AI is changing cybersecurity.